Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth here. So I wanted to do this video in regards to 12 major signs you're experiencing a spiritual awakening. And I'm going to add a little bonus one at the end. Um, I started a lot of my spiritual awakening at the age of 20, so about 15 years ago. It kind of initiated with me moving to Australia to study abroad, and I landed in Australia on my 20th birthday. And a lot of journeying happened at the age of 22 when I backpacked through India and studied yoga at a little school in India, and then finally moving back to Australia at the age of 23. So everybody's methods and ways of going through spiritual journeying or awakening is very, very different. I guess I feel a little blessed that I went through those experiences at such a young age because I was questioning and discovering things, at the age of being in college, and I met people who were on a similar path, but they were in their 40s and 50s trying to figure it out. So, we're in an interesting time in the planet. I feel that a lot of people are going through some forms of awakening. So you have a category of people going in this direction, and then you have a category of people going into another direction, which is more that dystopian society. They're getting further dumbed down. They're constantly addicted to the media or every single thing that's happening, and they're getting caught up. Their egos are getting caught up, and it's this negative cycle and cyclical effect that's continuing ourselves to move away from God or move away from our spiritual awakening. We are moving toward a very low bright vibration type of society. So a lot of spiritual people right now are kind of staying a little bit out of politics, and they're really trying to help people to calm down, to continue on with meditation or finding your, not attachment, just your connection to God, to nature, because they see what's happening and they see that we can be on the brink of some, Civil War #2 if we continue to divide ourselves and fight and just flare up our ego rather than coming to places of kindness and compassion. So here are the 12 major signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. So the first step or sign or symptom is that you're going to start questioning certain things. You're going to start questioning things that are greater than yourself. You might start to question, what is the purpose and meaning of life? Who is God? What is up there in the sky? You'll also start questioning your own behavior patterns and actions. Most of the time when you start to go down a very negative cycle, say like drinking or doing drugs or promiscuity, eventually it starts to catch up to you and you no longer want to be a part of that. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel healthy. And the reasons why, it's because it doesn't feed and nourish the soul. And it also, it doesn't allow ourselves to connect to our higher self. So that little voice in the back of the head that's like, I need to stop sleeping with all these men. I need to stop sleeping with all these women, or drinking 5 nights a week. That's your higher self calling you to something better than what you're doing right now. So you start questioning. The second thing is that you start to notice shifts and changes. You start to notice that you really don't want to drink as much anymore. You don't really want to shove a bunch of fast food and junk food down your throat. You start to notice shifts and changes in your life. You start to notice negative friends move away. I've had this happen so many times in my life. After I went to Australia and I moved back to Ohio, I was playing rugby at Bowling Green State University, and that was a very party culture type of sport, and I just never really fit in. And then I really didn't fit in between that transition of Australia and India. And then when I came back from India, I just noticed that culture and group just naturally started to go away, and I didn't really want to be a part of that lifestyle. I didn't fit in, and I started noticing other newer people coming into my life that were of better quality. And that was really difficult at the age of 22, because in college you want to fit in and you want to be liked and desired, by different types of groups or organizations. So, and then, I had this other experience at the age of 28 where my one friend went down the rabbit hole of, she was going down a divorce, sleeping with a bunch of people, sleeping with people in the bars. She started smoking pot because pot became legal at that time in Washington State. And she just randomly cut me out in life. And I walked by her on the street and she didn't even say hi to me. She just said hi to my ex-husband. And I was like, what the fuck did I do? But you know what? She was really, she started working at Amazon and just craved all that money and attention. So life will remove things that no longer serve you. So embrace that. You can still have emotions about it, but you will start to notice shifts and changes that, the divine is working behind the smoke screen to help you on your path. The third thing, you desire to be healthier. You want to start exercising, you want to start moving your body, or you want to start feeling better. So you're going to start to do some research here, or take some action to try to move toward living a healthier, more sustainable life. The fourth thing is that you want to connect with nature. You desire to be outdoors a little bit. Nature, depending on whether you believe in evolution or God, why can't we believe in a little bit of both? Maybe God put us, God created this, but there is a path of evolution that we humans have gone toward. But you just notice the serenity of being in nature. You notice the beauty. And what we don't realize is that beauty is inspirational. It's why people love fine art paintings, is because it's displaying beautiful landscapes or beautiful portraits of a nice vase of flowers. All of that stuff evokes emotion and allows ourselves to feel joy and some form of happiness, even if it's momentary. So you'll notice that you want to start connecting outdoors and to nature a little bit more. And you have a deeper appreciation for nature. It's not just your fucking playground to go and lose a bunch of weight and do some TRX pull-ups by wrapping the thing around a tree. It's like you're actually getting healing energy from nature. You start to let go of attachments. A lot of this is material in general. In yoga, we talk about Maya, which is the illusion. When I went through my yoga journeying, I very much started to detach from material items. I started to, when you go through these letting go of attachments, you start to go through these purges. So you might do like a spring clean or a personal detox, not only in your body, but also just getting rid of a bunch of stuff. And when you do get rid of a lot of things, you do feel better or lighter. The sixth thing is that you start to trust your intuition, or you listen to that inner voice. A lot of times that inner voice is in your intuition. If I talked about this in other videos, which I can link down below. God will test you, but he will not tempt you. The darkness will tempt you. So if you've had issues with having a bunch of random sex with people, you need, and some really hot guy or girl approaches you, you're being tempted to see if you're going to go down that rabbit hole of all that negative behavior that you've been going towards. So that's a temptation. I don't think that comes from God, but I think darkness tempts you a little bit more, but I do think God will test you. Have you matured enough to move forward toward a better, more sustainable life? We can't confuse intuition with paranoia. That's a whole other topic in itself, but you start to trust your gut a little bit more. The seventh thing is that you start to have increased empathy and compassion. You care about things, like you care about recycling. You care about things like the homeless situation or people who are on drugs in the society. It's not just about feeding them more drugs with their own, injections of heroin, but it's like you become more compassionate to want people to live a better life, and you have increased empathy to understand that a lot of people are struggling and they're hurting and they require a lot of healing as well. The eighth thing is that, you start to disconnect from television. You start to realize how horrible the screens are for you. Now there is a positive side to television and social media and YouTube where, it's like using the system against the system. The television and YouTube and all this has a lot of crap on it nowadays that no longer serves us, but you can use these tools to learn certain things like, nature videos or things like this that are positive channels that are trying to help you improve your life, or listening to calming, serene music. But really, when you start to let go of these attachments, you start to see how much the television and the media is starting to program you. In addition to, you let go of these attachments of social media, that it doesn't really have that much of an importance. Unfortunately, we need to have a social media appearance today if you're some sort of blogger, writer, or content creator, but you're not overly attached to having a million subscribers. That is nice. We can get caught up into that. I've gotten caught up into it where I've compared myself to other people who talk about the same stuff and they're actually able to monetize their videos. I can't monetize because I don't have 1,000 subscribers, and it made me feel really depressed. And I was like, God, should I just remove myself? But you know what? A lot of this is just coming from authentic work that you want to educate people. And maybe I am, the 7 loyal viewers on this channel. Maybe that's all I need to reach. You let go of these things and you start to realize that your popularity doesn't necessarily matter, but the work you're doing is what really matters. The 9th thing, you become more aware and authentic. I kind of just a little bit talked about that. You stop trying to fit in. I've been an outcast my whole entire damn life. I don't fit in any environment, but you just start to realize that you might be different, and that's okay. But also, when you become more aware, you're becoming more aware of your emotions, your actions, and your own behavior, or you understand things like your trigger wounds. Now, that is part of emotional intelligence, and the video I just posted a couple days ago talked about the 4 pillars, or ways. Sorry, I wrote a blog about the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence, but ways that you can start to master your emotions, which includes having a higher EQ. Okay, that was the 9th one. Okay, so the 10th one is that you no longer fit in. The 9th and the 10th point kind of fit in with each other. Although everything in life, is continuing to go on and people fall into the trends, like a long time ago you were different if you had sleeve tattoos, a shaved head, and pink hair. Now everybody has that. When things become a trend or mainstream, you're no longer trying to be different. You're trying to fit in a category of people who are trying to be different. So, if you no longer fit in, like, shit, this second stage of my life, when I was younger, I was a boho chick wearing, like, little exotic clothes from India and stuff. And now I've become more modest and, I'm into antiques, and that's, its own trend in itself. But it definitely doesn't fit into what the mainstream is. It's like not having a tattoo is almost like rare these days. But you just don't care. You just stop caring and you just be your own authentic self. The 11th one is that at times of spiritual awakening, you might feel alone, isolated, lonely. You might even be depressed at some point, and you might think or fall into this area that people don't understand you or they don't get you. Mainstream trendy people won't get you. If you've studied a shit ton of spirituality, they won't get you. And that's where letting go of attachments is going to be very important. I've experienced this on my journey because I've just stopped trying to prove a point or stopped trying to argue with people who are overly logical or like people who are atheist. They're not going to think like you, and they're going to think what you believe in is BS. Now, I do think you have to have a balance between the spiritual and the logical method, because I do think sometimes the paranoia that runs in the spiritual community can be very detrimental to your health. But you might, during some signs of periods of awakening, you're going to experience that nobody gets you. And that's okay. And maybe the only people that get you are the people on some spiritual channel on YouTube. The 12th thing is that you're going to start to crave more meaning and purpose. I've seen this so much in my life. In September of last year, I showed up to one of my corporate classes, a kickboxing, and an Indian woman approached me. She works for Amazon. And she goes, Elizabeth, I think you're going to be the only person that is going to understand this because you teach yoga and you're spiritual. But she's like, my soul is crying every single day that I go into go into Amazon. She's like, all it is a system that helps people buy more shit and become materialistic. So, people who come from India, a lot of times, depending on if they're coming from a spiritual background, they do detach a lot more from materialism than what we do, especially if they come from more of that yogic background. That's not necessarily always the case in that country, but her soul was telling her that she needed to have a job that had more meaning and more purpose. And I think that's, you see that a lot. People just up and quit corporate jobs and open up a bakery because that's what, nourishes their soul and feeds their positive emotions. So you're going to crave more meaning, whether that's going into more philanthropic work, even some more, healthy work might be choosing to work at your local co-op rather than working for like the national chain like Whole Foods and things like that. On this line of craving more meaning and purpose, the bonus number 13 sign of a spiritual awakening is that you will start to crave more meaningful sex and relationships. If you start to analyze mainstream TV and shows that show a lot more of this millennial hipster trend, like I don't really watch TV anymore, but I have watched a little bit of New Girl, and I liked that. That's from years ago. But everything, almost every episode now, it started off really cute, and now almost every episode it's just about sex and, finding new people to have sex with, and then this relationship and has sex. So we are bombarded daily by sex, and that can be very detrimental for a lot of men because they're driven to be more animalistic than women are. Women generally crave a more meaningful relationship, and men generally, it always roots down to sex. But if you found that you've been promiscuous a lot in your past, you're eventually that high and that excitement will be empty, and you do crave meaning. And why is that important? Because that is part of our biological thread as a human, and it is very spiritual to connect the divine masculine and the divine feminine, or two souls becoming one. Sex is very meaningful. It has, its original intention is to procreate. Animals in nature don't have sex just to have sex. It is for the biological function to reproduce. So those who, start to find like, God, I'm just done having this fling or this, I've worked with so many people that have had sex buddies, and eventually it comes to the point where they want something more meaningful. And that goes back to the very divine purpose of why we're here, of God creating us to share the most intimate, vulnerable part of our existence with another person. Those are the signs. Those are like some of the major signs. You can, there's probably like 50 of them. Like you see synchronicities, like everybody knows that. But when you crave something that goes beyond yourself, beyond the physical plane, and it goes deeper, more into that spiritual, emotional realm, that is where a lot of that awakening happens. So if you have any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share, or maybe your experience or just signs that you've gone through, please share them below. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I hope to see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.